Hello and welcome back, and that's right, I want to carry on talking about IP cameras, something I talk about here a lot on the channel, largely because of the way you can utilize them with a network attached storage device. I've never really been that secret that this channel is more than anything dedicated to network attached storage and the devices you use with them, but IP cameras are one of those things that not all of the audience takes advantage of. When they buy a network attached storage device, all too often they do it because they want to use it for two or three things and they want to maximize their investment. And a number of NAS brands like Synology, QNAP, ASUS and others arrive with quite impressive surveillance software inside. So with that, they recommend buying IP cameras, which brings us neatly and smoothly to today, the SimCam 1S. Now this device here promises a lot, okay? Because it is one of a newer generation of IP cameras that can be used both with network attached storage devices in ONVIF, ONVIF mode, or can be used on their direct compatibility list for utilization in surveillance. But this is even more than that, because when it arrives at around 100 to 120 quid, which is probably a little bit more than most, it arrives with support of DVA, Deep Video Analytics, and Deep Video Analysis, depending on your definition terminology, really. Now, DVA is a big deal in modern surveillance because, you know, cameras aren't new. We've had webcams since the early noughties, but now we're seeing IP cameras that are utilizing internet protocol and network and, you know, just basic communication from anywhere in the world. But now we're getting so much recording and so much footage, we haven't got time to watch it all. When you have a camera stationed outside your house, it might be on. For every 100 hours that it's on, you're probably not even going to watch more than about 30 to 60 minutes of the recorded footage. And when you do want to go back to old footage, there's going to be loads of it. Say, for example, you want to know how many people walked through a door in a given period, or who entered a building, how and when. A deep video analysis enabled camera, otherwise known as an AI powered camera, gives you that functionality. And this is because the camera arrives with its own CPU, software and AI engine working in the background, actually watching every frame. It's analyzing every frame for information. Now, most AI-powered cameras start off at 250 to 300 quid as standard, with some of the functionality I'm going to talk about today. But with this one arriving at 100 to 120, we have two key questions we want to answer today. One, is it worth 100 to 120 quid? And two, should this be your next IP camera purchase because of it? Or does it do everything but not very well, and therefore it'll be a waste of money to start with? So today's hardware review is going to be looking at this device, talking about what it can do, and in the next video I'm going to do a full software overview and hopefully a third video where we test it out on a Synology and QNAP NAS just to see how well it functions. So, what do you get for your money? Well, the SimCam IS promises to give you all of the features and functionality of a much more expensive AI-powered camera. So that involves person detection, where it can detect the difference between a person and another moving object. With that person detection, you've also got facial detection and facial recognition. So every single person that it identifies, it logs and takes a snap of their face and builds a database in the background of the app that you can then name these people so you know who and when people entered certain areas of a recorded area of detection. There's up to a 99.48% what they're saying, that the facial recognition is 99.48% accurate, which is fairly good. And I know a number of AI cameras try to give more than that, like spotting gender or even age in some cases, which always blows my mind. Hopefully this camera doesn't have that, because I know it annoys a lot of you when they have that. But on top of facial recognition, there's also the promise of things like thing detection, and more precise than that, pet detection, car detection, object movement detection. So what these mean in real terms is you might have a pet, a cat or a dog that goes in the front garden or the back garden quite a lot, but you're monitoring that area with a camera. The last thing you need is movement detection to know that Fido has ran round in another circle. Pet detection lets you extrapolate that when that animal is in shot, or any animal technically, it will not trigger any alerts. But if a person walks out, bing bong, the alarms go off. Same goes for vehicles as well. If you want to know about vehicles entering a certain area or moving into a frame of observation, so you've got a whole camera area and you say, this area here, I do not want any vehicles to enter it. If a vehicle enters that area of detection, then you get an alert. But if a person walks there, nothing. You can tailor those alerts. And finally, object movement detection is when you want to know when certain objects move. So be it indoors with certain devices or certain, heirlooms, a vase, something. If these devices get moved, the camera will alert. But if someone walks in front of it, nothing. So, and the same goes in vice versa. If you want an area or a field which nothing should be in, and then someone leaves a bag there suspiciously, you need an alert to tell you that an unknown object has now entered the area or a field that isn't a person, a car, or any of the other kind of exempt items that you select in the app. It's quite detailed, an AI-powered camera, but I'll talk more about its features and functionality in a bit. Let's look at it. There's our retail packaging, fairly standard stuff, and again, quite dull. Let's not mince words here. It's got the picture of the device on the front. They've gone for that less is more approach. Lots of mentions of Amazon Alexa, Google Home, and IFTTT. If this, then that. These are kind of AI-assisted apps and AI-assisted devices. You can use verbal prompts for the camera to do certain things. If we remove the box, there's lots of information there about the detections that we just talked about. Move that there. We could take a closer look at the contents of this box. Now let's have a look. Let's get that out of there. It's quite heavy, this box, for an IP camera, so I'll be interested to see just what the weight is of this device. Got that box there. We've got a handy bit of foam, and we can see the contents of the box. It's quite all well partitioned out there. Lots of bits and bobs there. Inside, we have our first time installation guide and warranty information there. Lots of graphical bits and bobs there about the first time setup of the device. Again, not exactly bowled over by the instructions on this device, but it's better than nothing. Inside, we have an external power supplier, and this is a bespoke PSU here, so not a USB one. This does deliver a little bit more power. As we can see there, it's not a USB connector, and that's because high-power cameras will consume more power whilst in utilization because of the CPU of the device actually analyzing what's on screen in real time. It doesn't analyze the recordings, it's analyzing in real time. And a lot of those alerts, when the recordings are happen, when something occurs, it won't just snip the recording and give you an alert based on that one area. What will happen is, if an alert is triggered, you can have up to 60 seconds of recordings alerted to you from the beginning, before the alert and after the alert. And again, you don't have to have 60 seconds. You can sort of cut it up and down, or you can have the cameras on all the time and the alerts happening as well. You can have both of those systems running synchronously, and that's both at day and nighttime, because they have an enhanced night vision mode that works up to about 60 feet of nighttime motion detection, and the night vision obviously powered by LEDs based around the lens. Now, the device can also be wall mounted. There's lots of information and bits and bobs inside this box for allowing it to be wall mounted, from raw plugs to a cushioned wall panel and a base with which you attach this camera to the wall. But this isn't a standard pan tilt zoom camera. In fact, it has just the one panning. There's a kind of physical tilt you can do, but it's not operated by the device. But you can operate a 360-degree pan with the camera. But that's not going to be hugely useful if you're wall mounting it. If we have a look at the camera itself, the last thing in the box that we want to look at, remove that from there. We can take a good look at the SimCam 1S. And we can see it's quite a cool little design there. I can see why it was so weighty. Certainly, I mean, the top of it, there's a lot going on in there. That is a heavy camera. Also, it's quite ruggedly constructed. I don't know if you've noticed some of the other cameras that I've used. I'm just putting this near the mic. I mean, it's pretty sturdy. And normally, a lot of these cameras are pretty naff in the grand scheme of things. Now, if we have a look, we can take a look at the front of this camera. At the front there, we've got the lens. Let's peel that plastic. We're not going to need that there. And if we have a look, we can see the lens built into the front of the device there. If we have a look, you've got a little microphone there for the audio in on the rear of the device. we've got the audio out. It's a two-way audio system. And on the base, if we look at the rear there, we've got that screw hole that we can remove. And that screw hole there will uncover an SD card slot inside that can support up to 128 gigabyte SD card. But of course, you don't have to rely on localized memory. You can sync this up with a NAS, or you can synchronize it with their own third-party cloud platform. But please do wait until I've done the software overview of this device being utilized with a NAS, just to see how effective it is, or whether you can or cannot take advantage of some of those DVA features, some of that AI-powered stuff. Now, as mentioned, the camera does rotate completely on its base to 360 degrees, but the device itself, you hear that? It is a cog-based system that I shouldn't really be playing with in that fashion. But we will be testing the 360 degree rotation and the tracking, because this camera does state that it can track objects as well. Obviously, there is going to be limitations with regards to the panning. The tilt, because the tilt is a physical tilting mechanism and not something you can control from the software inside. On the rear of the device, we've got that power port as described earlier, and we've got that other little connection there, which is mainly just for the wall mounting, so you can put it up there. But there isn't an RJ45 slot on this, which I know will annoy a number of you, because some of us like having our cameras wireless, and some of us like having our cameras land in, because if you're going to do high density recordings with this camera supporting up to 1080p, that's a lot of bandwidth. And the camera, although at 1080p, doesn't go up to the heightened 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 frames per second at that. If you are going to use some of the lower frequencies, you're going to heighten that FPS whilst it's in utilization. Now, I mentioned the alerts you can get. There's SMS alerts. You can use the application to get a lot of those alerts, and we will do a full software overview of the application for Android and iOS that this arrives with, because you want to know how well this can be controlled, whether we do a first-time setup guide or bundle it all into a big old video to show you guys just how good it is. But at the moment, it's quite a rugged bit of kit as far as cameras go. If I had to say what I like, there's obviously the idea that you've got all that AI-powered functionality, but all of it arriving at a hell of a low price point compared to its contemporaries. On top of that, there is encryption built into the device as well, which is hugely important for modern cameras, in my opinion, whether you're using a NAS or not, because too many of the low-end cameras have no encryption, and that means that the recordings you have aren't locked, and the transmission of data between places is not locked either. Encryption on an IP camera is increasingly important, given the number of us have got cameras in our lives, be it on our phones, on our tablets, our laptops, or on the cameras that we choose to place around our home or office environment. So encryption, huge deal, and it's included at a price pretty nice. On top of that, its support with things like NAS and IFTTT and Alexa and Google Home is impressive too. And having that AI functionality and allowing some of these third-party brands to take advantage of the alerts and triggers that the camera has. So the AI-powered triggers and alerts that are recorded by the device itself, rather than relying on a third-party software, which can be a real latency issue with triggering events in between. It's very, very good indeed. What do I not like? I don't like the fact it doesn't have an operational pan-tilt zoom. I do think at that price point, although you will have to factor in kind of the motion of devices and, you know, the gears and stuff that go into a PTZ camera, I do kind of wish this had pan-tilt zoom, or at least 4x optical zoom rather than the whole thing being digital zoom, because digital zoom will blur up very quickly, and even AI-powered cameras do not do well with that. So an optical camera might be more use in that scenario, and I think that's one of the reasons why we've got an AI solution here that's at an affordable price point. But I'm going to reserve my full judgment to after I've done the software overview, because it'll be a bit unfair to judge it just in that way. But from what I'm seeing so far, if it can do even half of what it says it can do, I'm going to come away from this very, very impressed. But do stay tuned for that software overview, and don't forget to subscribe to get that as soon as it's live. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Click like if you enjoyed this. Go to the NAS Compare link in the description to learn more about IP cameras with and without NAS in your home or office. And I will see you next time.